Super Jayain's not a toss pot. He likes to fuck blondes a lot. Dun 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 dun. He picks them up looking for a root. He doesn't tell him he's about to shoot. He's gonna let it go inside the womb. You're on the pill, alright. Jay enjoys rooting blondes and he has no shame. If you want to read his manga today, you better let him spray. Dun 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 dun. Super Jayan is not a sped. He will bring your sister to bed. And once he blows that load, he'll send her ass home. Super Jayan watches Dragon Ball, and he doesn't answer when you call. Especially if he already got his root. Your yesterday's news. Dun dun dun.
Very good. I could tell that's Yeah Break, Care Break, and the lyrics. I like those lyrics more. Good fucking job, man. They're pretty good.
It's just funny because I wrote that, and you're a witness. I wrote that in 2 minutes.
Yep, that's pretty good. Guys, Geekdom's lyrical skills rival his Dragon Ball knowledge, I'll say that much.
Nah, I don't know about that. Okay, maybe you're right. So, all right, welcome to Talk Dragon Ball. The show is back. This is Super Jayain. Why haven't you subscribed to Super Jayain yet? You should be wondering this. If you have, good. If you haven't, then go to his channel. Jay, what? Just out of curiosity, man, when are we gonna expect to see another one of those 5-minute movie reviews? I'm excited about it.
I have some time off over the weekend, so I'll knock another one out over the upcoming weekend. I will be doing Movie 2, so that will be a lot of fun. Some of the movies I'll have trouble keeping under 5 minutes, so some of them I might have to do 7 or 10 minute reviews. Battle of Gods, for example, is a perfect example of that. That will probably have to be a 10-minute review because there's just too much content to go through. But yeah, I really enjoyed making that project, and I've had a lot of positive feedback. So there'll be another one of those coming up this week.
Very excited, and I'm pretty sure that by the time they hear this, it may already be up, depending on when this video goes up. But this topic today, Jay, so let's inform the people what it is that where we got this whole thing from is the name of the video is Jay's Journey into Japanese Dragon Ball, and the whole thing is kind of a conversation that you and I had actually like 2 nights ago as of this recording, and then last night again about your, actually we had one on chat, and then we had one on the phone about your journey into Japanese Dragon Ball. And I don't even know how to even describe it, but you know, when I first met you back in March or April, it was early April, you know, you were a staunch Kai lover, and you know, we talked, and you know, you were a very intelligent fan. But now you're trying to grow your knowledge, you know, even more so. But it's kind of had this weird side effect where you're like a new Jay now. So let's get into it. So, okay, you started watching Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z in Japanese, but you had seen it in Japanese once before, but now you're working on a little project, which is, you know, do you want to keep it a secret? I mean, it's up to you.
No, I've revealed it on my channel before. It's just basically I'm going through each arc, taking notes, writing the dub changes down. So what I basically do is I will watch scenes, the entire series in Japanese, and if a scene stands out to me with a dub change, I will then change it over to English and leave the Japanese subtitles, not like the English subtitles of the Japanese version on. And then basically if the line is significantly different to the point where it's detrimental to the storytelling, then I'll take it down as a note. And I'm basically doing that arc by arc. So I will be starting with the Saiyan arc. I know I should be starting way back in Dragon Ball, but I'm probably going to start with the Z portion because that is the most popular portion of the show. So I'll start with that. And then obviously I'll do Dragon Ball and then GT.
So you are now, as far as your watching goes, you've already seen all of Z, and now as of this recording, you're watching Dragon Ball, or are you going back and forth?
I'm about halfway through the Buu arc, so I'm still finishing up the second watch through of the Z portion, but I have started watching Dragon Ball as well at the same time.
Okay, so you're doubling up, and that's fine. You know, people can do that too. I was just gonna ask you because you, I know you have a lot of things you want to say, but I do want to ask you about the project before I do, so everybody knows. You know, I've said this. You know, we're gonna get to Jay's thoughts, and I'm only gonna speak for myself, not for Jay. But I have said from the beginning. Again, it doesn't matter really what you grew up on, and it doesn't really matter like if you prefer Sean Schemmel or Chris Sabat and all that. You know, people have always asked me, do you hate the dub? Do you hate the dub? And at one time in my life, I did. I went through this phase where I did hate it. And then after a while, I kind of, just accepted it. And, there's some things about it that I like, and there are things about it that, I can accept it just being there. And, obviously Jay and I have talked in depth, as well as Jay's video with Megan, Uncanny Megan, about Kai, about, the Kai dub and everything. But, I've said it time and time again. Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and GT in Japanese is a completely different show. I mean, it is very vastly different, both in atmosphere, tone, as well as, kind of the dialogue. And my thing has always been, even though I have issues with certain voice actors in the dub, the script changes is what bothers me. That's why I even started the damn Lost in Translation series, which I'm looking forward to adding new episodes to. Jay is now going a step further. Not only is he rewatching the series, he's now taking notes on all of the script changes. So what have you discovered, Jay, in watching the series in Japanese?
Well, first and foremost,
taking notes.
I'll just start by saying, first and foremost, this video today I'm talking about, it has nothing to do with your preference, like Geekdom just said, of voice actors, and it has nothing to do with your preference of score, which is music, for those of you that don't know. Nothing to do about your preference of score or voice actors. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah,
we're
not talking about Falconer or Shamel. It's just the script. Go ahead.
I'm talking about the integrity of the story that Toriyama has told in his manga and adapting it to the screen and what you see in the anime. The integrity of the story in the Japanese version, I have discovered, it has a lot of inconsistencies in the dub. And for those reasons, I've started to slowly transition over to the Japanese dub, the original, and to the point now where I can't even really watch it in English anymore. And I'll elaborate a little bit more on why that is later, but really it all started for me. I've always been a lover of Kai. I've always loved Kai because it's really, if you're going to watch the English dub, it's truer to the manga, its pacing is better. I'd rather watch 157 episodes instead of 291. But it got to a stage where even when I was watching it in Japanese, there's information that is left out in Kai that really didn't need to be changed or left out. And obviously the original dub of Dragon Ball Z, the Funimation 90s dub, is even worse than Kai. So I'm finding myself becoming more distant and more distant from that dub, to the point where I just prefer to watch subbed, because the integrity of the story is still there. Now, some of the stuff that they've changed over the years, you understand why. Even though I don't agree with the changes, stuff like Heavenly Realm being changed to Kami's Lookout, that could be for purposes as it's more censorship in the States, and it's a religious term in a sense. Stuff like that.
I was just going to add to what you're saying. I don't mean to interrupt you, Jay. I just wanted to kind of elaborate on what you're saying. The Funimation dub has very often tried to avoid any kind of theological or biblical kind of connotations. And just to, Jay, in my opinion, I do understand it for the television version. I still think the home video one should have been as true as it could be to the Japanese, but things like Kami-sama being the god of earth, Dabura, I believe, is called the demon realm. They do use certain things, but like, for example, King Piccolo was just called King Piccolo, not Demon King Piccolo. So references to demons and devils and things like that many, many times were changed. Beerus, most recently, he's called the Destroyer God. Not once in the Japanese version is he ever called that. He is the god of destruction, Beerus. Hakaishin Birisu, right?
Yeah.
And like, I was just pointing out that, just to add to what you're saying, Jay, is that some of the changes are obviously for digestion of children. I can understand them changing it because they don't want to offend anybody religiously. So I do understand that. Plus also the edits of Goku's penis. There are certain things, and Bulma's tits. You can't show that shit on TV. So I do understand those edits. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, and that's really where it started to begin for me. The fact that they didn't fix those when they released on home video, and then I started watching it in Japanese, and it's just a more raw version of the show. Now, a lot of people might be upset when I say this, but the best way to really put it, and it's really true when you watch it in Japanese, is that it doesn't matter if you're still watching the English version in uncut on Blu-ray or DVD. I would still compare that version of the show to somewhat of a teenage show or a kid's show. The Japanese version is more uncut and still more raw. It's more of an adult show. It has more adult themes in it, and the story being told is just a more mature tone. Like Geekdom said earlier, the story has a more of a different atmosphere about it, and that's not to do with the music. It's not to do with the voice actors. The actual voice acting is great, but the actual atmosphere of the show is just so different. And there's just little things that I've noticed. Now, I won't ruin my project that I've got up, like coming up in the future too much, but
Well,
there's
you can
little
give us a little
changes.
teaser here and there, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
things that didn't need to be changed, obviously. This is a basic one that everyone's aware of almost, but the hyperbolic time chamber was changed from the room and spirit of time. It used to be called in the Japanese dub the room and spirit and time. It still is, obviously. And then when the English dub was made, they changed it to the hyperbolic time chamber. There was absolutely no reason for them to change that. Now, you could say the word spirit is in there. I really don't see that as being too much of a problem.
Especially since they use Spirit Bomb, which is a change from Genki Dama.
Exactly. So they're beating their own argument there. The other thing is just something simple. In every single English dub, when Goku enters the Room of Spirit and Time with Gohan, in the Japanese original dub, he said this is as big as the Earth itself. The Room of Spirit and Time is as big as the Earth itself. So it's basically another dimension on Earth. In the English dub, they felt the need to change it, and it goes on in every direction. That's like basically saying that the Room of Spirit and Time is infinite in every direction. Little stuff like that, if you're a true fan of the series, it does bug you. Now, I don't want to say that people who just watch it in English aren't really hardcore fans of the show. That's not what I'm trying to say.
No,
but what I will say is if you actually care about the integrity of the story and you actually care about Dragon Ball, you will do yourself basically the dignity of watching the show in Japanese, because A, you will learn from it. I knew a lot about the show before I watched it in Japanese, but now I'm learning more.
And then you met me.
And well, that's one thing.
Let's be real here. You're like Rose from the Titanic, and I'm Jack. You know, like at the end of the movie, she's like, "Jack saved me in every way a person can be saved." I'm kidding, bro. I'm kidding.
No homo. But but yeah, and there's just other things as well, like Captain Ginyu. That in Japanese was Commander Ginyu. Now, for two things there. For one, I think Commander Ginyu sounds a lot better than Captain Ginyu, and there was no reason for them to change it from Commander Ginyu to Captain Ginyu. Little things like that are really basic. That's only the tip of the iceberg on the changes. I'm giving you guys a little taste of the changes. The actual story is so different. I can recall entire conversations, and this will be on my project coming up for you guys, that were changed for no reason. A basic one is in episode 2 of Dragon Ball when they're on the back of Bulma's bike. Goku's talking about the fact that he's hungry in the English dub, and in the Japanese dub they're having a conversation about the Dragon Radar, what it does, and where they're going to find the next Dragon Ball. Now, if you ask me, there's absolutely zero reason for them to change that conversation. There's no excuse there. They just went out of their way to change it. Now, the other part of it is, yes, in the 90s they had the whole Barry Watson thing and the whole Funimation thinking that, you know, if they wanted to make it a show that was going to be appealing to American children and American youth, they had to put rock and roll music in, and they couldn't have silence where there was silence in the Japanese original, because kids wouldn't be able to keep interest in it. And like Geekdom said in the past, it's kind of an insult to children in America, because if you like the show, you like the show. That's all there is to it. And adding in and I use this as a perfect example. In the Japanese dub, when Frieza and Goku first meet and they're having their little stare down.
I love that
part. Japanese dub, in the Japanese dub, dead silence. They just stare each other down, dead silence. In the English dub, they feel the need to throw in a stupid line with Frieza saying, "Your shoes untied," Goku saying, "Nice try, I don't even have shoelaces." That completely, that makes it seem like a kid's show straight away. Yeah, it ruins the scene completely. The second part that Geekdom's also very vocal about is there's a lot of minor, smaller ones in between these scenes. I'm just giving you big ones as an example. Is Gohan's transformation into Super Saiyan 2. They have complete silence in the Japanese dub with Yoji Yanami narrating the scene basically once Gohan has transformed.
Well, and the song. Don't forget
the song. The song is amazing. Yes.
Umne no hi tamashi no tamashi, which means Day of Destiny, spirit versus spirit.
Exactly. And the English dub, they basically feel the need
to have
Gohan talk about Android 16 and how he loved life and how he was such a great guy. Let's be real, guys. Gohan didn't even fucking know Android 16 at all. He never knew him. So that scene makes no sense. The whole narration in the English dub is off in most parts. So I will say that whilst you're still getting a similar story when you watch the English dub, the Japanese dub is a different story, and it will make you feel like you're watching the show all over again. If you're a true fan of the series, I urge you to watch it in Japanese. Don't talk about the voice acting, because if you want to talk about the voice acting, before I even got up to the end of the Cyan arc, I was completely desensitized to the fact that I was watching it in Japanese. You're busy reading the subtitles, and if you're going to complain about subtitles and be saying, oh, I don't feel like reading subtitles, Dragon Ball is a show where you can read subtitles when people are talking, and that's not going to be detrimental to your experience. When there is fighting to be had, there is next to no subtitles anyway. So you're not reading subtitles while the fighting is going on. So if you're going to use subtitles as an excuse, that's a cop-out. If you're going to use voice acting as an excuse, that's a cop-out. If you're going to use Bruce Faulkner's shitty soundtrack as an excuse, that's a cop-out. That's all I will say about that.
I just wanted to add to what you're saying now, because Jay, somebody's gonna hit you up with the, oh, you're just nitpicking, and I'm gonna let you counter that one in a minute. But I've been saying this for a long time about what you're saying, and again, I'm not disparaging the talents of Sean Schemmel or any of these guys. We're talking about just the script and the integrity of the story. So please do not comment about how you can't stand Goku's Japanese voice or any of that bullshit, because I've said it many times before. If you start watching in Japanese, you will eventually get used to it, even if it takes you a little bit of time. I'm used to it from the start. Like, Masako Nozawa was just Goku. The thing is, for me, is, people have often asked me, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but they say, you're very knowledgeable, and why? Why is that? Because I fucking watch it in Japanese. That's why, because there are so many things that, it's weird, Jay, because the dub, and we're talking about the original 1999 Funimation dub, not Kai. Kai does have some changes, but certainly not as many as in the original dub. Not only did they add dialogue and add things that weren't even there. Same thing with the Ocean dub. That one's even worse. But also, they took stuff away. And that, to me, is also a crime. There are certain thematic elements and a certain atmosphere and certain undertones that I feel were lost. Like, the feel of the show is lost in the dub. Now, one could sit there, like, for example, Super Kami Guru 9000 did a video about how they're two different shows. And I agree with that. They are two different shows. So that's why Jay and I are kind of saying, okay, they're two different shows, but if you really love Dragon Ball, you'll at least give the Japanese version a try, because then you'll see the real show, how it was meant to be seen, so to speak.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Exactly. And based on my previous statement, a lot of you may have clicked out of the video and started attacking me in the comment section already. My comment about Bruce Faulkner, I will defend right here and now. I didn't attack Sean Schemmel. I didn't attack Chris Sabat in the voice cast, but I will attack the music. And the reason being, even though the integrity of the story is most important about what this video is about, the music also changes somewhat the atmosphere of the show. Now, let me start with saying, when they did the original dub in the 1990s, they had never really dubbed too much. They hadn't dubbed a whole lot of anime.
They were very new.
They were very new,
and they didn't have scripts either.
They made this mistake, and even to this day, it's one of the only anime that the Americans have gotten their hands on, Funimation in particular, where they have made an original soundtrack for the US version. They don't do that. These days, they don't do it.
Now, let me tell
you, you can defend Bruce Faulkner all you want, and I actually like Bruce Faulkner's music outside of Dragon Ball. I have it on my phone, and I listen to it. But when I listen to it, I don't relate it to Dragon Ball, because he does have some cool tracks. What I'm saying is it misses the point of the show's themes. It changes the atmosphere of the show. And regardless of whether there was a whole lawsuit between Bruce Faulkner and Funimation, even if they were on good terms, I fucking guarantee you, with Kai and Super, they still wouldn't have brought him back. The reason being is because they don't do that in anime. They try and stay as true as possible these days to the original version of the show. That's what they did with Kai. That's what they will do with Super. And that's what they did with Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F. So the voice cast these days has somewhat redeemed themselves. I personally, because of the amount of dub changes that have been done in both versions, I have been left with a bad taste in my mouth, and I kind of don't want to go back to English. I will always watch it in Japanese now. And that's just the way it is for me. I don't expect everyone I'm not saying everyone has to agree with me and watch it in Japanese from now on. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you are a fan, like a hardcore fan of Dragon Ball, and you want to keep the integrity of the story, then I think you owe it to yourself to at least watch it in Japanese once. And I think Geekdom said that many times.
I said that many times. And the thing is, even if you end up liking the dub more at the end of the day, it is worth watching at least once if you're a fan, just to see kind of the way it should be. And the thing is that, I mean, honestly, most of the people who end up watching it, once they get to about, like, you start watching Z, all right, you should start with Dragon Ball, but if you start watching Z, once they get to about the early Frieza sagas, when they start to kind of, a lot of people, not just Jay, that's when they start to kind of connect it. Like, by that point, Nozawa's voice is no longer an issue. By that point, Kikuchi's score is kind of growing on them. You know, at that point, you're starting to slowly kind of, and then you kind of develop that, you know, okay, I can dig this, you know. And really, Dragon Ball is a better place to start because the development for all the Z characters kind of started there. Now, one thing I will add to what you said, Jay, for people who don't know, who don't understand, okay? So I'm about to hit you with some real knowledge right now, okay? Chris Sabat and Sean Schemmel themselves, and the interviews on YouTube, they themselves have talked numerous times about how bad that original dub was. They've talked about it themselves. Sabat himself has said many times that they did not have a script. They didn't know what they were doing. They were taking Spanish scripts. They were adding stuff. The guy who was in charge of Funimation back then, right, is no longer with the company now. Now it's Chris Sabat. And the thing is, the guy who was in charge back then, what Jay's talking about, is that their whole initiative, and this whole thing came from Saban. Saban started this with Power Rangers and with some of the other anime they brought over and disguised as American shows. Their whole thing was Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball are American kids cannot handle it. We need to dumb this down as much as we possibly can. American kids are not going to sit through silence. They can only handle loud, obnoxious rock music at all times. BLACKENFIST interviewed Bruce Faulconer, and Bruce Faulconer himself said in the interview that he never intended his music to be played at all times. That was a call from Funimation, not from Faulconer. So it's not even Faulconer's fault. They're the ones who said, we need you to play music at all times. They're the ones who said, we have to edit this. We have to change this. We have to change the names of characters. We can't say Paikuhan, so it's Paikon. Why can't it just be Paikuhan? What is that extra syllable that bad? Like, you know, shit like that is just legitimately pointless. And another thing you should check out, folks, is Hail Zeon's video about the community should get, it's called The Dragon Ball Community Should Get Fucked. And it's very insulting to some people, but if you really read between the lines of what Zeon is saying, he's right. Any other anime that this would have happened to, regardless of what it is, whether it be Naruto, whether it be Hellsing, and I know a lot of, look, there's a lot of fans of One Piece and of Yu-Gi-Oh! Who have criticized 4Kids editing, and they're saying that 4Kids is even worse than Funimation. Yes, I agree with that. You're not going to hear an argument from me, but we're talking about Dragon Ball here. Any other anime other than the 4Kids ones in Dragon Ball that got treated like this, the fan base would be outraged, just completely outraged. It would not allow it. But for some reason, this Dragon Ball Z dub has this weird nostalgic connection with people where they just can't seem to let it go. When Jay, I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I feel like watching it in Japanese is kind of like when you quit smoking with a 3-day hump. Once you get past the hump, you end up enjoying it more, you know, in a weird way.
Absolutely. I've never had a problem with the Japanese, you know, watching it in Japanese. Everyone's biggest gripe with accepting the Japanese version, and before I even get onto that, let me just attack some people. I'm not attacking everyone out there. I'm just attacking some people.
Jay's on
I cannot stand the fans out there who defend the American dub like it's the original version of the show. You fucking idiots need to remember that this show was from Japan and not from America.
That's
Without
right.
the Japanese version, you wouldn't even have your fucking shitty version. Now, I'm going on a bit of a rant here. And
I love it, bro. I love it.
But just remember that. You can defend your fucking version all you want, but you wouldn't have that version without the Japanese original. And you've ruined that version anyway, because even if that version was still as bad as it is, if the fans of that version had a little bit of dignity and a little bit of respect towards other fans, we wouldn't hate you as much. But because you guys are fucking assholes, you ruin your own fucking community.
And you're talking about those assholes who said, oh, well, Joji Yanami is sick, good riddance. Fuck off and die, bro. Like, really, you should fucking die. Like, I'm feeling like you right now. This is not all the dub fans. I know a lot of dub fans who are very respectable, very good people. We're talking about the morons who actually have the balls to say, I wish that Nozawa would die. Is this fucking show... Is your ego so fucking small and your dick... I'm sorry. Is your dick so fucking small and is your ego so big that you associate so much with a show that you wish that a voice actor, a real person, would die because you don't like them? Like, do you have anything else going on in your life? Do you have a job? Can you get laid? I mean, it really... Jay, it really, dude, even ZZ Toasty, Jay, who we've never done a video with, ZZ Toasty was pissed off, and he grew up on the dub. He was pissed off at the people insulting Joe Gianami. Like, have some fucking respect, bro. You wouldn't say that shit in real life, but you'll say it on the internet because you're a fucking pussy-ass keyboard warrior. You're fucking keyboard warriors.
Yeah, if I trash a version of the show, I still keep my dignity and my respect. I don't wish any harm upon anyone involved with the Funimation dub. I don't wish any harm upon anyone who's a dub fan.
I just want to say this too, to add to that. I'm not a fan of Linda Young as Frieza, but I would never, ever, ever wish anything ill upon her, man. That's like so, like, this is a real person who's actually talented.
Yeah.
You know? Well, go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue.
The other thing that's right. And the other thing I'll touch on is people who say Bruce Faulkner's music made the show. We've already touched on that, but if you make that statement, you're a fucking retard. Get the fuck off my channel.
Yeah,
get the fuck off my channel. But the other thing as well I will say is, we'll get back to the voices. I wasn't bothered by the voices, but for a lot of people getting into the show, they will say, oh, I want to get the true story and I want to have the integrity, but I can't put up with the voices. For the most part, people only have a problem with, let's face it, even though you and me love her, Danny, most people, they bitch about Masako Nozawa. That's the only voice actor.
Yeah.
That's the only one they target. They're happy with Ryo Harukawa as Vegeta. No one cares. Like, everyone thinks Yoji Onami is actually a better King Kai because he doesn't sound like he's drooling or choking on his tongue when he's talking half the time.
But you know what? Like I said, you get used to Nozawa if you listen to her or not.
Yeah, that's the thing. Nozawa was handpicked by Toriyama, as Zeon pointed out in one of his videos. It's common knowledge that Nozawa was handpicked by Toriyama back in the day when the show was first being started. So, from a kid in Dragon Ball, Goku was supposed to sound like that. And a lot of people wouldn't target Nozawa's performance in Dragon Ball because she does sound like a kid. Now, when you get to Dragon Ball Z, I wouldn't say Nozawa sounds like a female, even though she is a female. I don't really associate that. I associate Goku in Japanese with still sounding like a big kid. And that's the way Goku is supposed to be portrayed. He's a big kid that loves to fight, and he's strong because he shuns his limits. He's not a superhero. He's not a superhero who can constantly surpass his limits because he's the main character.
Just real quick,
but he's not Superman.
The Japanese anime did diverge from that, especially in the movies. But yes, in the original manga, you certainly are right. Like okay, the superheroism of Goku was changed in the Japanese version, but in the English version, it became even more so, which is the whole hope of the universe speech. You know, people love to talk about, Gabby. Our friend Gabby on Twitter the other day was talking about how she went to a convention in Australia, your people, and they're talking about how awesome the Hope of the Universe speech is, and she's like, that's not even a real speech. He never said that. It's just that superhero, I want to be Superman bullshit. What he actually said in that speech was 10 times cooler and more fitting for that character, you know?
Yeah, no, look, I'll say this, like, this is kind of my final thoughts on the subject. If you are a true fan of the series and you actually care about Dragon Ball, like you've read the manga and you enjoy the story and you actually care about the story, just watch it in Japanese once, start to finish. Forget about the voice acting, forget about the music, enjoy the script and the dialogue, because that's the truest version. And it's just such an enjoyable way to read the show. And reading the manga doesn't necessarily mean, even though reading the manga is a good way to educate yourself on the true story,
I was just saying, Viz made a lot of mistakes, guys.
They did, but yeah, watching it in Japanese, if you actually want to watch the anime, that's the best way to watch it, and that's my opinion. That's probably not going to change from now on. Now, I would rather associate myself with the minority than the majority, because in this regard, a lot of the time you'd say, no, I'll go with the majority because the majority's got to be right. Well, wrong. I'd rather stick with the minority. If I'm in the minority of Western fans, like English-speaking fans that follow the Japanese dub instead, so be it, because I'd rather know what I'm talking about. Now, that's basically all I have to say on that, because if you are going to just watch the English version, you're going to miss out. I'm not disrespecting you, but if you're only going to watch it in English, whether it be Kai or whether it be the original dub, you're going to miss out on vital information that's key to the story, and you're not getting the true story of Dragon Ball. That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. This is not meant to be, even though it kind of was, this is not at all meant to be a rant on, actually it's not at all. It is not meant to be a rant on anybody's personal preference. It's more so of a tool from somebody, I guess an explanation tool of somebody other than me, who, Jay had watched it in different languages in the past, but never actually took notes. And you talked to me last night, Jay, and you seemed very, very shocked that you were like not shocked, but you kind of seemed shell shocked, like almost like to the point where you were kind of depressed about all of the different changes. And you told me something that was very telling. You were like, I feel like I've been watching the wrong version my whole life, or I feel like I was lied to my whole life. Like it's almost like I almost feel like your girlfriend cheated on you, Jay. Dragon Ball cheated on you is what it sounds like.
Well, I love Dragon Ball. I've got a Dragon Ball tattoo. It's a big part of my life. It's just a big part of my life. And it was, like I said, it's like watching the show over again from scratch. And although my knowledge of the show has increased and the scenes that I've watched have a different atmosphere to them and I view the scenes differently, that's another thing as well. I view certain scenes, and I will touch on this in my videos I do in the future. I watch certain scenes now completely differently to how I used to because the dialogue's different, and I viewed that scene, oh, maybe this character was stronger than this character, and then you watch the scene in Japanese and you go, oh, wow, that's completely changed my perception on that. So it's just a lot of things. It's like watching the show all from scratch and basically re-educating yourself as a fan. And it hasn't depressed me to the degree that I don't like the show. It's just I'm falling in love with the show all over again, but it's for different reasons, if that's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like a new honeymoon phase.
And actually, one thing I will touch on, I know I keep coming up with new things here.
Oh, no.
I'll give you a perfect
it's our
example
show,
of something to do with voice actors to make this completely irrelevant. This is completely irrelevant. This makes the voice acting argument completely irrelevant. Vegeta was my favorite character way back in the 90s when Chris Sabat voiced him. I watch it in Japanese. Just because Ryo Harakawa is voicing him doesn't magically mean Vegeta doesn't become my favorite character anymore. Vegeta is still my favorite character in Japanese. You can't sit there and tell me that if you start watching in Japanese, your favorite character is going to change all of a sudden just because he's voiced by someone, him or her is voiced by someone differently. No, because it's about the storytelling and the character development of that character. That doesn't change. That's very vital as well.
Yes, yeah, I mean that's a good point, and and not to mention that you may actually end up learning more about the character by watching it in Japanese because you get to find the character's real motives, like Frieza. A lot of the stuff about Frieza and the way Linda Young portrayed him, and it's not Linda Young's fault, was missed. And eventually, I actually would like to talk to Chris Ayres one of these days and actually ask him kind of what he did for the Frieza character, whether or not he. I'd like to know whether or not he did some research or if he just read the manga or what exactly he did to kind of learn the character, because I think he got the character down pat. Plus the script was better. I don't think it was Linda Young's fault. I think it was mostly the script, and he just did it so well when he did it in Kai. And my whole thing is this: this video is not meant to disparage anybody's opinion of any dub or anything. It's just Jay is now another witness, as I am. Try it out. You might end up, but most likely, most people I know who tried it love it. Try it out in Japanese with Stephen J. Simmons subtitles, and it's a different experience. It really is. It really, really is. And don't give me that bullshit about. Here's the bottom line, folks. And when my Mike LeBrie interview goes up, you'll hear it again. If all you've seen is the Funimation Toonami dub, I've said this on Twitter before, if your only exposure to this series is the Funimation dub, you've never read the manga, you've never done any homework, never been on Kanzenshu, never watched any of my videos in detail, never watched any of Jay or Xeon or Mr. Fusion's videos, or QAAMAN or any of these guys, if you just watch the Toonami dub, your knowledge is not going to stack up to any of us. It's not going to. And if you don't give a fuck about that, that's fine. Then you're on the wrong channel, bro, because this channel is all about fucking and celebrating the awesomeness of Dragon Ball, Star Wars, and other things that I geek out over. And Dragon Ball is #1. And we're celebrating its awesomeness no matter what language you watch it in. It doesn't matter. My thing is that with specifically Dragon Ball, there were so many integral changes to the series and the story and the dub that I feel that a lot of the tone and a lot of the message was lost, and people have got to see just how even more awesome it is if you watch it with the correct dialogue and the correct script and the correct tone. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I agree with you, and here's another thing. I even play my Dragon Ball video games with Japanese now. I don't play it with English.
I've been doing that for a while. He's basically turned into me from 10 years ago. I love it.
Yeah, my hatred, my respect for the fans that like the English is there, but my hatred for the dub is strong as well. And I try not to let that overshadow my love for Dragon Ball as a whole. That's the most important part. I don't like. I'm distancing myself more and more from the dub. but it's all about Dragon Ball and the community, and this video is more to educate people about the changes. And if you want to have the true integrity and the true story, then watch the subbed version, the original Japanese. That's all I say.
That's right, folks. And that's the thing. This is not meant to ruin your childhood. Please don't give me salty tears. It's just try it and enjoy it. Jay did it. He's across the world. I'm not putting a gun to his head, forcing him to do it. He volunteered to do it. He's doing it, and now he has completely converted over. I have converted him over to Gokuism or whatever the fuck. But anyways, check out Super Jayain's channel. Regardless of your preferred language, he reviews Dragon Ball and he reviews Dragon Ball products. And he's quite the looker.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Probably the most handsome Dragon Ball YouTuber until I do my face reveal. But no, but even then he probably wins. Anyways, well, he's definitely not for never. He's like the opposite of for never world. How about that?
Oh,
you're like
he went there.
Yeah, if for never world's the ugliest man on earth, then you're the opposite. So, anyways, thanks everybody for checking out the video, and I'll catch y'all down the road.
See you later, guys.